Winella woke up bright and early the next morning, and she got dressed in her best school outfit, and then she went downstairs and she had breakfast. She had her wand with her, and when she was about 2/3 of the way through breakfast, the tip of her wand began to glow. Winella quickly finished her orange juice and said, "Mommy, I think it's time for me to go." The wand glowed brighter and brighter and brighter until it was so bright that Winella had to shut her eyes, and she could still see how bright it was through her eyelids. Then the light faded and she opened her eyes, and when she opened her eyes, she was no longer the same place she had been before. She was standing on a wide grassy lawn in front of a great castle. The castle was white, and it had painted on it in the front in red. It had painted a phoenix and a unicorn.
What's a phoenix?
And a dragon. A phoenix is a bird that...
Oh yeah, I know what a phoenix is.
You know what a phoenix is.
What is a phoenix again?
A phoenix is a bird that when it dies, it bursts into flame. And from the ashes of the flame, a new phoenix arises, a new young phoenix.
Just tell the rest of the story.
Yep. There was also a great cross on the castle. Winella gripped her wand tightly and walked up the path towards the castle. As she did so, she heard a little sound, a little yelp of surprise behind her, and she turned around and she saw another little girl. This girl had blonde hair and pigtails, and she too was clutching a wand. Winella waited as the little girl caught her breath and then began to walk towards her. "Hello," Winella said. "I'm Winella. Who are you?" The little girl said, "My name is Claire. Did you get a wand from the fairies too?" Winella said, "Yes, they gave it to me my 6th birthday, but told me that I had to come to wand school to learn how to use it." Claire said, "Me too. Isn't this exciting?" Winella said, "Well, I guess this castle must be the wand school." Together they walked up to the castle, and when they got there, they discovered that the portcullis is sort of the metal gate that goes over the door to the castle, was closed, and the drawbridge was up, so they could not get across the moat to the castle. They looked at each other for a moment, and they looked up at the castle, and they shouted, they said, "Hello! Hello! Anybody home? We're here for wand school! Hello!" Nothing happened. No one answered. And then Winella squinted her eyes, and she saw that on the back of the drawbridge there was something written. The writing said, "Welcome to wand school. This is your first test. If you are worthy of using a magic wand, you must use it to enter the castle." Winella thought for a moment. She tried pointing her wand at the drawbridge. Nothing happened. She shook the wand a little bit, but nothing happened. Then Claire pointed her wand at the drawbridge. She said, "I want this thing go down." And when she said go down, light shot out of the wand and hit the drawbridge, and the drawbridge slowly clanked down. Claire looked so surprised that she dropped her wand. Winella said, "What happened? How'd you do that?" Claire said, "I don't know. I was just thinking about how much I wanted the drawbridge to open." Winella said, She pointed her wand at the portcullis, and she thought as hard as she could at the portcullis, and nothing happened. And then she said, "Open!" And sparkles shot from her wand, and they hit the portcullis, and it slowly clanked up. They crossed the drawbridge. There, standing just inside the portcullis, was a fairy that neither of them had ever seen before. She was dressed all in pink, with a tall hat. She had black glasses. She had wings that were neatly folded back behind her, and she smiled as they approached her across the bridge. She said, "Hello, girls. Welcome to wand school. You have passed your admissions test. My name is the fairy..." And when Alice looked at her and said, "The fairy what?" And she smiled and she said, "That's my name. I'm the fairy. Winella said, You're just named the fairy, nothing else? She shook her head and she said, No, my name is the fairy. That's it, you see? Winella said, Wait. Your name is the fairy, and it's important to put the pause? And the fairy nodded her head. She said, Indeed, my name is in the fairy language of silence. And Winella said, Oh. She looked at Claire and shrugged. Claire shrugged back. They smiled at each other. They said, So what do we do at wand school, fairy? She smiled at them and said, Well, you've both got your wands, so you're ready for the first thing that you must do. She said, You've already learned, entering the castle, how to give commands. Today's first classes will be you practicing giving commands. Tomorrow's class will be on granting wishes. And the last day will be on using your wand to learn to fly. Winella said, Fly? Cool. The fairy said, Well, yes, flying, but it's much easier for fairies. Little human girls like yourself really won't be able to fly very far, probably just float a little bit, but we'll teach you the general concept. Winella said, Well, that sounds lovely. The fairy said, Follow me, and led them to a wide courtyard in the inside of the castle. The courtyard was covered with various objects, and at each object there was written instructions of what the girls needed to learn how to do. Winella started on one side of the courtyard, and Claire started on the other. Winella first came to a ball, and the ball had instructions on it that said that she must learn how to play a game with it called basketball. She must use her wand to bounce the ball, and then her wand to cast it through a hoop. It took quite a bit of practice for Winella to learn to do this. It was easy to get it to bounce once with her wand. At first, she had to keep saying everything she wanted it to do, so she would have to say, bounce, 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 shoot, in, and then the ball would go in. Winella, as she practiced, got a little better, though, so that she could just think it and just wave her wand a little bit with each bounce and go whoop, when she shot. Once she had mastered that, she and Claire traded sides, and Claire went and learned how to play wand basketball, while Winella went and learned to do the thing that Claire had been working on, which was teaching a rat to talk. This was a much more difficult task for Winella. The rat didn't talk at all, and Winella first tried pointing the wand at him and saying, Speak, thinking as she did about how Tracy next door would tell her dog to speak and the dog would say, Woof. Well, when Winella thought about this and pointed her wand at the rat and said, Speak, the rat looked up at her and said, Woof. Winella thought, Oh, that's not right. I was thinking about dogs barking. How can I think the right thing? She pointed the wand at the rat again. She said, Understand what I'm saying. And then she bent down and she said, Do you understand what I'm saying? Shake your head yes if you can. And the rat shook its head yes. Winella said, Do you have things you'd like to tell me? And the rat shook its head yes. And Winella pointed the wand at him and said, Tell me what you're thinking. And the rat said, Estoy pensando que usted estás un hija muy grande y yo quiero un helado, por favor. Winella sighed. She said, I got a Spanish rat. I don't speak Spanish. She said, but I guess the task just said I had to teach him to speak. It didn't say I had to teach him to speak English. So then she sat down and she watched Claire as Claire bounced the ball around. And then she heard a beautiful chime in the air. Ding, ding, ding. The fairy appeared in the courtyard and said, Wand school is done for the day, girls. Now you must show me what you've learned. And they each showed them what they'd learned. Winella was surprised that the rat that Claire had trained, spoke French, but they were both quite good at the basketball. They were both able to score hoops without having to say bounce, 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 and they could even score from quite a long ways across the courtyard. The fairy smiled and said, "Here's the last lesson for the day. In the same way that you got brought here, you must now use the wand to take yourself home and to come back tomorrow. If you can come back after going home, you will be prepared for day 2.
And we'll tell the other days.
Said, "But how do I get home?" And the fairy smiled and said, "Apply what you have learned today." So Winella pointed her wand at herself, and she thought as hard as she could about home and about the very special house with the very special room that was all hers, with walls and floors that were pink and blue, and the wand began to glow brighter and brighter and brighter until she had to shut her eyes, and when it faded and she opened them, she was indeed in the most special room in the world.
And we'll tell the story of the next day of Wand School tomorrow night.